And here's how Chip Patterson sees the ACC power picture heading into 2025. Clemson and Miami at the top of that list. SMU and Louisville right behind. Georgia Tech cracking the top 5, while traditional contenders like Florida State and North Carolina find themselves in the middle of the pack. Time now to bring in the man behind the rankings, the one stirring the ACC pot with bold takes and even hotter debates, CBS Sports' own Chip Patterson. Hey, Chip, how's it going? Let's start with your number one here at the top, Clemson. It's a loaded veteran group led by Heisman hopeful Cade Klubnik and 8 returning starters on offense. What makes this, you think, the year that the Tigers can take that next step in the CFP spotlight?
Yeah, it's about to step back to where they were. It's about the program standard that was set from 2015 to 2020, when every single year was ending with an ACC championship and going into the college football playoff, often playing on the last night of the season, winning 2 national titles. So what did those teams have that Clemson has been lacking? Well, a true dynamic, consistent playmaker at the quarterback position. Now, Cade Klubnik was that when he became a starter, but he has slowly become that over the course of his career. They also had NFL wide receivers. I think we finally have that both with the young players like TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, but also with Antonio Williams, who our own Ryan Wilson has as a possible first-round draft pick. And finally, Katie, and this is the thing that gives me the most confidence. For the first time in a long time, we've got Clemson with surefire, certified dudes along the defensive line. You know, like, we remember when they had Dexter Lawrence out there and Cleveland Farrell and just body after body of future NFL pick. Well, that's what they have. Now it's Peter Woods on the inside. It's TJ Parker on the outside with some talented freshmen backing them up as well. So finally, we've got a Clemson team that on paper looks like the 16 title team, the 18 title team. But this is the thing that Dabo loves. This is when he gets in his bag, because Trevor Lawrence has talked a lot about how Dabo puts a chip on the shoulder of even the most talented teams. Dabo spent all this talking season saying, y'all talking NFL draft. I saw him give up 300 yards to the Citadel. So he's trying to tell them they're not that good. But Katie, we know better. This Clemson team is for real.
They are for real, and they got some dudes. But, Chip, you know that defense is going to be under the microscope to take that step forward, or as you said, step back to where they belong, particularly in that run defense and the pass rush as well. So, Chip, you got Miami sitting at number 2. This is a team with national top 10 hype and legitimate playoff buzz. They got a new quarterback with Carson Beck and a new defensive coordinator. There's a lot of pieces to integrate here. So what gives you the confidence that this group can finally break through and crash the CFP party?
It's the recruiting that Mario Cristobal and his staff have done year over year over year. We are now in year 4, and now we're going to see players like on the offensive line, Francis Mauigoa. I mean, that's a preseason All-American right there. That's a first-round NFL draft pick. Reuben Bain on the defensive side. These are traditional recruiting wins, guys that they identified in high school, worked to be able to land, and then you pair that with some of the transfer portal additions, then you're going to try to have a Miami team that has the talent requisite to go out and do what they did last year, which is be in the mix for the ACC championship. Now, they've got to do a better job of finishing at the end of the year, because they blew a 21-point lead to Syracuse in the last game of the regular season that would have had them in the ACC championship game and possibly in the college football playoff. So if they can do a better job of finishing the season and adapt to a new identity, that's one thing that Carson Beck is not going to be expected to be Cam Ward, because he doesn't have the same kind of tools that Cam Ward had. Cam Ward had 4 receivers that are now in the NFL, ones that aren't at Alabama. I mean, that kind of dynamic playmaking at the pass-catching positions, I just don't think is there, but they're so good along the lines of scrimmage that if Carson Beck can manage this and kind of be the X factor to take them over the top, then Miami can be right back in that ACC championship college football playoff discussion.
That is something their fans have longed for quite some time. And Chip, you got Georgia Tech cracking the top 5 here ahead of Duke and Florida State. The Yellow Jackets return most of their core, including Haynes King at quarterback, and they've stacked back-to-back winning seasons. But what convinced you that they're ready to make that leap from a good bowl team to a real ACC contender?
Yeah, this is a Georgia Tech team that I think will probably have a final record that's not in line with this ranking. This is the first time in our discussion, Katie, where I'm going to say the power ranking is not necessarily the predicted order of finish, because on strength alone, Y'all saw what those bees did to the Bulldogs at the end of last year. Pushed Georgia, the eventual SEC championship, to 8 overtimes. I mean, they can beat every single team on this schedule. Do I expect them to beat every single team on this schedule? No, because the margin for error is so slim. But when everything is running hot, Haynes King, Jamal Haynes at running back, when they've got Malik Rutherford getting it done at the wide receiver position, this is a Georgia Tech team that can hang even with the Clemsons and the Georgias. But again, they don't have that kind of depth. They can't take a lot of injuries, and the defense has to take a step forward. But when I'm thinking about a power ranking, when I'm thinking about a power rating, I have to respect the ceiling as a part of it. And that's why I've got them at 5. But I would say that's really the number 1 spot of the middle tier for me.
All right, so let's talk about Florida State. You have them at number 7, and Chip, they went 2-10 last year. Probably couldn't get any worse. So what do you see for them in terms of a bounce back?
Yeah, I think this is more of a water finds its level. We're not going to get back to Florida State where Florida State deserves to be, where Florida State spins, where they want to recruit like it, which is competing for ACC championships. They're just not there yet with this roster. But I do think that in bringing in Gus Malzahn as the new offensive coordinator, bringing in Tony White as the defensive coordinator, they're just going to be a better coach team, because last year's talent was not the type of talent that delivers a 2-10 season. That was a group that just really bailed, and I think that the culture improvement is worth at least 4 or 5 wins on this thing. So I look at some of the portal additions, of course, Tommy Castellanos at quarterback, but really it is at the wide receiver position and on defense where I think they've done a good job of bringing in players who are going to be able to, again, just solidify things. I don't expect them to beat Alabama. They're going to be taking some losses in conference play, but at the end of the season, they're not going to feel like they are wildly outclassed. And the problem last year was losing to teams that did not have as much talent as Florida State. I think they correct this year. I mean, you look where they are in my power rankings. They're a middle-of-the-pack team, but I think they will deliver middle-of-the-pack type results this year, too.
Well, there's a lot of Seminoles in this building that are happy with what you had to say there. So, Chip, Bill Belichick certainly made headlines, taking the job at UNC, amongst other things. But now it's time to see what he can do on the college field. So you got the Tar Heels slotted at number 10. Is this a nod to just the respect that you have for Belichick, or is there real belief that Gio Lopez and this transitioning roster can flirt with an 8-win season in year 1?
Yeah, number 1, I would agree. It is belief in Gio Lopez. I think that he's got a really good plan to be successful. They spoke a lot about what he did against some of the best competition. You know, South Alabama, they got a chance to play LSU, and Lopez's performance against LSU was a big piece of them being sold on what he can do, making the jump to the next level. But defensively, I mean, honestly, for maybe 10 years, North Carolina's been a mess. At times, one of the 15 or 20 worst in the entire country. And we remember the disaster that was the James Madison game last year with Bill Belichick as head coach, with Steve Belichick as defensive coordinator, and with the bodies they have brought in on the defensive side, including a lot of guys from Washington, where Steve was the DC last year. I just think that they are not going to give up as many points as they have been over the last decade. So when you solidify the defense, you put less stress on the offense. So you don't need a Sam Howell or a Drake May. A Gio Lopez can get it done if 28 points is going to be what you need to win the game. One last thing on the Tar Heels, it's kind of the flip of Georgia Tech. Their schedule, North Carolina's, is so easy. They could finish with as many wins as Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech I have at 5, North Carolina I have at 10. Georgia Tech tough schedule, North Carolina easy schedule. That's, again, some of the imbalance that we get in this big league.
All right, so let's move on real quickly here to Bill's former OC, Bill O'Brien. He's taking the reins at Boston College, and you got them at number 13, Chip.
Yeah, I would say that this is the bottom of my middle tier, and it is a loaded middle tier with about 8 teams. Boston College did a very good job in year 1, being able to navigate some ups and downs, some weird results, and still get to a bowl game. But talent-wise, they lost one of the best defensive linemen in the country in Donovan Ezeraku, and they also lost a player in Cam Horsley on the interior of the defense that really made the whole defense better. So, Katie, I wonder, were they that good in the secondary because they are that good in the secondary, or because they had 2 incredible defensive linemen speeding up the clock for all these quarterbacks? Until they can show me that they can replace those defensive linemen, which was an absolute strength for them last year, now I'm going to need to wait and see on the Eagles in terms of them really jumping up into that top 5, top 6, top 7 discussion.
Yeah, and as you can see, they're a challenging schedule for them. They got Clemson, Notre Dame, and SMU on tap. Chip, always a pleasure. Thanks for breaking down the ACC. We know where Chip stands. Let's take a look at the betting market. Clemson, of course, leading the way there as the odds-on favorite at plus 105, followed by Miami at plus 390, Louisville, SMU, and Georgia Tech rounding out the top 5 of contenders.